Morality is something that can often be expressed as having two extremes, good and evil. So for example, kicking a puppy, that would be evil. Donating money to charity, that would be good. Liking the video and subscribing, that would be good. A video game that looks good on the outside but underneath is disguised as an online slot machine where you can spend real life money for the chance of winning an anime character that also takes advantage of people and more importantly kids to make as much money as possible? What is a gacha game? Well, gacha, not gacha game, but just gacha, first originated from Japan and was essentially a toy vending machine where kids would put in coins and be given a random toy in return. At one point, gacha got put into video games as a monetization system, and now gacha games refer to online, live service games where you can spend real life money to gain the chance to win something within the game, usually some sort of new character or gear that makes the game easier. Now I, similarly to many others, really like these type of games, and play these games a ton every day. But it is no surprise that gacha games aren't exactly the coolest things in the world. If you told a normal person in real life that you played gacha games, they would probably look at you all confused and ask you what you're even talking about. But if you told a normal gamer that you played gacha games, chances are you would probably be looked at with a face similar to the face you make when your homie sends you some weird ass reel on Instagram. And why is that? Why is it that when you tell someone you play a game like Call of Duty, people don't have a problem with it? But when you tell them that you play Genshin Impact, and all of a sudden you've got a criminal record and your bail is set at $250,000 with no parole? Well, there are many reasons for that, but let's start with the one that is the most visually apparent. At the core of any business are the products that it sells. For McDonald's, that is food. For Dr. Pepper, that is pepper. For Apple, that is the illusion of getting a high quality product. For gacha games, that product is 2D anime waifus, and like any successful business, they have to make their product as appealing as possible to make sure that it sells well. So how do they do this? Simple, make them as hot as you can. Now let's be real here. How well any particular character sells probably has a positive correlation with how much art of them is online on the internet. That being said, however, is there anything wrong with this? In my opinion, I don't think so. Other than the fact that some dude out there might have seen one of these characters in-game, did a little sneaky internet searching on Google, and inadvertently opened their own personal Pandora's box, having Goonable characters shouldn't be much of a bad thing. If you asked me personally, would you perhaps like some Gooner-based characters in your favorite gacha game? I'm not gonna lie guys, I would probably deal with the devil. Jokes aside, going back to the guy that opened Pandora's box, it ain't really a big deal. However, if we change that guy that opened Pandora's box into a young kid, well now we have a bit of a problem on our hands. ESRB. Entertainment Software Rating Board, basically a rating system that tells parents, hey, don't buy your kid this game, it has an M for mature on it. Buy this instead. It has an E for everyone, perfect for your 14-year-old son who would never want to play a game outside his age rating. Now, these ratings would be very helpful if they were accurate. Let me tell you about a little game called Brown Dust 2. Brown Dust 2 is an adventure RPG gacha game, where have I heard that before, that is known for its content. You know, content. Given its abundance of content, you would probably assume that its age rating is this. But if you go to the Play Store, its rating is actually this. Uh-oh, that doesn't seem right. Now, I don't think I have to explain the problem with this. If I was a parent, I probably would not be very happy if my son or daughter were playing these games. Kids are very impressionable at their age, and being exposed to these types of material at a young age can lead them down a dark path and just be extremely harmful for them in the long run. But man, this sounds bad. Hopefully, this is not the only thing that these gacha games are negatively influencing kids with. Kids are dumb. Kids are stupid. Their little brains are undisputed. Not good. Every time I went to Las Vegas as a kid, I remember walking through the casinos and the workers there being like, hey kid, where are your parents? You shouldn't be here by yourself. And this is normal, and there are many reasons why this is normal. Look, when I was in middle school, Middle school, by the way, not even high school. I once had a friend who gambled on Counter-Strike gambling sites. And one day, he came up to me and our group of friends and was showing off how he had just won a new shiny CS2 knife. Now, I don't exactly remember what knife it was, but I think it was an M9 bayonet Doppler. Now, I don't remember how much it cost back in the day, but these knives now cost $1,800. That's like 4 or 5 stars in Genshin Impact. And you know what they say, no one man should have all that power. Or I guess in this context, no one kid should have all that power. And he didn't, because the very next day, he gambled it away and lost all his earnings. Let's not forget that he was in middle school. So, gambling is bad. We all know that. Now, am I about to say that gambling in CS is as bad as Gacha? Hell no. They are way too different for me to honestly make that argument. Gacha waifus are worth nada, so there's never that thought in your head that you will win your money back. There's also a pity system in many of these games, meaning that at one point you will win what you are trying to pull for. Look, the CS gambling epidemic is on a whole nother level when compared to the gacha gambling, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's a little suspicious. And look, let's be honest, to a stupid kid, the dopamine rush of winning a gacha character before hitting that 50-50 is probably just as huge, if not more so, than winning some stinking money at a casino. What are you gonna do with some green paper? Wipe your ass with it? Kids don't understand the value of money, and they really shouldn't be expected to at their age. Yet these games are enticing kids to spend their parents' money to essentially gamble on a kiddie slot machine. And a lot of times, they spend way too much money because it often isn't clear how much money they actually are spending to get their favorite waifu, which segues us into our next section. When you want to buy a character in a gacha game, it is a very simple process. First, you need to buy a currency, then you need to convert that currency into another currency, then use that currency to buy the currency that you used to gamble with, but depending on which banner/character you want to gamble on, there are different currencies you need to purchase to gamble with. Now, this system might be simple for you if you are used to playing gacha games, and yeah, it is for me too. But every added layer of currency conversion is ultimately another layer of confusion that serves to further obscure how much money you're actually spending on these games. These systems make it so that every time you click that 10 pull button, you forget that you are essentially just indirectly spending money. Luckily for us, there have been rules and regulations that have been passed to make this jumbo spaghetti clustercluck of a mess less confusing by forcing Genshin Impact to clearly label how much everything costs. This is a good thing, as less confusing for the consumer is good. Unluckily for us, if this anti-consumer practice is like a skeleton in the closet for these games, then there is still a whole skeleton army just stuffed inside that closet. Daily missions and battle passes that encourage players to log in every day to complete their mission so that they can earn their daily 1/3 of a pull. Hidden gacha rates so that you don't understand how the gambling mechanics work in the game, and when you do decide to open it up, you get flashbanged by a giant wall of text. Limited time events and character banners that pressure you to spend money now, or else you might not get the chance to experience this event or obtain this character again. All of these are just a few ways that these games are psychologically engineered to pressure the player into playing more and in turn spend more money that they might not actually have. Also, I've listed a good amount of these shady practices, but a lot of these games have their own exclusive, patented doggy doo-doo systems. For example, Genshin's Impact weapon banner never had a true guaranteed pity for the weapon you want, which is best exemplified through this small indie streamer named Tectone who might have lost just a little bit amount of money trying to get a 2D weapon for this anime girl. Speaking of content creators, now this section of the video is gonna take a step away from the gacha games themselves and talk a little bit about the content creators that cover these games. To start this section off, let's talk about Kick. You know, Kick, everyone's favorite streaming site. Jokes aside, Kick is a streaming site that people have an extreme negative bias against, and that is not unjustified, as Kick is like the shitty cesspool that the bad apples from the apple tree, that is Twitch TV, tend to fall into. It has a ton of very questionable content, and one such example of that is, again, gambling content. Gambling content is complete ass cheeks because essentially gambling sites just give money to a bunch of streamers, and these streamers promote these gambling sites by using the sites with the money and showing off their big wins. Now, like I said earlier, gambling is not the same as gacha, but there are still parallels that you just can't ignore. Content creators showing off their epic gacha sessions are still promoting these games. And this isn't just limited to the gacha pulling session videos on YouTube as well. Many of these content creators are sponsored by the games to play and promote them to lots of people on the internet, and some of these games are of questionable quality. By promoting these games, it is undeniable that a small percentage of the audience will try these games out, and a small percentage of that small percentage will get addicted to these games in a harmful manner. But does that mean that these content creators are doing something bad? So after explaining all these morally questionable things that gacha games implement that negatively impact their player, why do I still play these games? Well, every negative point I have made against gacha games actually isn't as clear-cut as it seems. For the Goonerbait allegations, a lot of the really popular games such as Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and Honkai Star Rail are nowhere near as bad as Brown does too, and I think are overall fine. As for the gambling for kids point, well, like I mentioned earlier, gacha and gambling have key differences that truly do separate them from each other. Not only that, but we as a society already expose kids to things that are similar to gacha. The biggest example is trading card games. Things like Pokemon TCG are basically just gateways for kids to get into gambling, yet we seem to be pretty okay with it as a whole. As for the anti-consumer practices, a lot of them aren't that big of a deal. Stuff like dailies and battle passes end up being more like hassles in the long run rather than things that I feel are negatively impacting my life. Ultimately, you can just learn as a consumer to protect yourself against these practices. And to be fair guys, it's not like real life businesses aren't trying to manipulate you into spending more money either. This ain't exclusive to online anime slot machines. As for the content creators promoting these games, for every one person that gets negatively impacted by it, there are probably over 1,000 times the amount of people that are unaffected, and some who might even be positively affected. And to be honest, are they really any different from, for example, BTS promoting McDonald's, Ronaldo promoting KFC, or Taylor Swift promoting Coca-Cola? And let's be real here, would you guys be really any different? At the end of the day, morality is subjective, and whether these games are crossing the line is ultimately up to you. Thanks for watching.